Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, we're rolling. It is Tuesday night, Gridiron Grinder time nonetheless. I'm Ryan. With me, as always, is my buddy James. Just a couple dudes hanging out, talking about what's going on in the NFL each week. We are in the off season, my friend, and so last time we did our Super Bowl recap. Now we're starting to get kind of creative with what we're doing with these episodes, which, by the way, tonight is episode 85. And so in this episode, we're going to start things off with Name That Stadium like we always do. Then we're going to hit the news from the past week. After that, we're going to spend some time, going back and forth about possible franchise tag candidates in the AFC. And then we'll close things off with question of the week. And so tonight, AFC. Next week, we're going to do the same thing. We'll hit the NFC. But yeah, with all that being said, how's it going tonight, James?
It's going good. How's it going with you?
It's going good, man. What do you think? Next week we get back to Fridays?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe.
Uh, I don't
Fingers
think either of
crossed.
us are going out of town next week, so we should be good.
Yeah, I've actually been digging these earlier in the week shows. It seems like we get a lot more hits, so that's cool with me. But Fridays are good because then we can sleep in on Saturday, so or dream about it. Sleeping in doesn't really happen for me anymore, but
Yeah,
that's life once you have kids, right? So
exactly.
okay, cool. So why don't we jump in and do Name That Stadium? And so for anybody who's watching, this is the part of the show where, as you can see, James is out there traveling the country. He's got a different stadium in his background every week. With it being the off season, it could be anywhere. We don't have any home games where he picks a matchup or anything like that. And so, basically, yeah, if you think you know it, hit us up. First person to get it right gets a shout out in next week's show. And maybe one day we'll have some swag. We can throw you a T-shirt or a bumper sticker or whatever the heck people like for their swag these days. Pens, I don't know, buttons, something. Something. We got to
Something.
get there, but we need a budget first. So, James, why don't you tell us where you were at last week, man?
Last week, I threw a little curveball, and I was at the Hall of Fame Stadium in where is it? Columbus? Is that where the Football Hall of Fame is?
Canton?
Canton. That's it. I was like, why can't I think of the city name? I knew it started with the C. But yeah, I picked the Hall of Fame Stadium, and I know you're gonna hate this because before being traded to the Rams, Stafford was a Hall of Famer. After being traded to the Rams and winning the Super Bowl, he solidified that Hall of Fame candidacy and is, in my opinion, a guaranteed Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the Super Bowl ring, I think it's the icing on the cake. And the thing is, he's still pretty young in quarterback years.
Hmm.
So he's got plenty of time to pad those stats, get some more playoff wins. And, I was just reading an article, man, I don't know, like a week ago. And somebody was saying, with the way you can manipulate the cap, they thought the Rams could easily get at least another 1 or 2 years before they got to start like paying the piper for all the manipulation, which would, keep that window open for one or two more serious cracks for Stafford, man. And then I don't know, I heard after next year, the Lions might trade to get him back. So, that would be pretty crazy. And I'm not wanting them to do that, but that was just one dude speculating. And I thought, wow, that guy's an idiot, in my opinion. But there's no backsies, James. No backsies.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is they're working on like a 5 year extension, 5 to 6 year extension for Stafford in LA.
That would be more appropriate. They traded some big draft picks for the guy, lock him in long term. He just did what you wanted him to do. I think that's the right thing to do. And then, you know, let it be long enough that he retires a Ram because I think he's earned it now at this point. So,
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, that was your stadium for last week. That's cool. I thought it was creative. We haven't done that one before, so that was fun. But yeah, let's move on here. Let's do our recap of the past week. And going through James, we're getting into that time of year where some weeks you really got to scrape the bottom of the barrel to get a story in the news. And so there's a lot of speculation type stuff like, ooh, who, like what we're doing, who could get franchise tagged, and mock drafts and all sorts of things like that. And so I did some digging. I got some tangible stuff, probably a little bit weaker than normal, but I'll start it off with safety Ricardo Allen announced his retirement. 8 seasons in the league. 8 seasons in the league. He played with Atlanta and he played with Cincinnati. Short career. I'm not entirely sure why he's hanging him up. From what I recall, he was good enough. Seems like he could have kept playing, but that's okay. 8 seasons. That's a lot longer than most make it. Next up, we got some Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. Everybody's calling it like cryptic Instagram or whatever the heck he's doing these days. And so, he sent something out basically like thanking everybody and their mom. And now everybody's like, is that his way of saying he's going to retire or force a trade or whatever it's going to be? And, just a week ago, I heard like everybody saying things were on the up and up with him and the team. They had a lot of good meetings after the season ended, and he was for sure going to be staying. And now it's like, here we go again. He just, I don't know, man. And then people were asking him like, what's going on with his future? And he said like something like, there will be no news today or something. And so he likes just the drama, man.
So apparently he went into it a little bit more earlier today. He has like a weekly appearance on a sports talk show, and I just saw an article about it. I didn't actually hear it because I was busy working at the time, and it was kind of like, he was saying that the post was kind of closing the chapter on the season and just, moving to the off season, et cetera, et cetera. But if you're moving to the off season, then why the fuck are you including Timmy Boyle in the post, who he wasn't on the Packers last year?
Yeah, that's interesting. And then I think there was like a big thing about him thanking his girlfriend. It was
His ex-girlfriend.
oh okay, yeah,
Ex-girlfriend.
a little weird, man, a little weird. I don't know, dude. It's hey, whatever. These guys are in the public eye, so they're gonna use that platform whatever way they want, I guess.
Exactly.
All right, so let's just keep moving here. Next up, I saw looks like there's some strife in Cleveland with Jarvis Landry. He's making comments about believing he can help a team win a championship elsewhere, or something along those lines, and playing through injury, and it just I don't know, man. Another wide receiver maybe on the way out in Cleveland, and I just saw somebody, taking a jab at Mayfield saying, hey, OBJ went and played great without you, like maybe you're the problem, not the wide receivers. And, I don't know. To me, it's a run first team. And so I just don't know that any wide receiver should expect to be putting up like freaking 1,400 yards or something in that offense. It's just not the way it's designed. But, either way. And Landry, he's getting a little long in the tooth. Some receivers have great, length in their career. I don't know. To me, it seems like he's maybe slowing down a little bit. I know he's had some injury issues, and I don't know. Maybe he comes back healthy and gets back on the right track. But, hey, it sucks, man. Everybody was pumped up about Cleveland, probably nobody more than me, and then they just fizzled out at the end of the year. So it was a bummer.
Yeah, that could be because Baker Mayfield sucks, but
Yeah, and they're kind of trapped with him. We talked about that before. Like I'm not sure what else they can do. So
I hear Aaron Rodgers and like I think it was Super Bowl week or the week before Super Bowl made a trip to Cleveland and apparently was talking to the team.
yeah, yeah. Hey, bring in Devontae Adams and I'll come here. Is that what he was saying?
Yeah, I don't know. Here's the thing about it is it's laughable that that's actually what was going on because you remember AJ Hawk. Apparently he lives in the Cleveland area.
Okay.
And so Rodgers was there visiting AJ Hawk is the true story behind it. And then he went to like his kids, one of AJ Hawk's kids' basketball games and took a picture with some lady that surfaced. And it was like, well, why is he taking a picture with Browns fans? And
Yeah.
it's like, he got he got his wish. He put out the cryptic Instagram post just so everyone would fucking talk about him.
Yeah, so now every time, no matter what it is, it's going to be like under the magnifying glass. Oh my God, what's going on? He went to Kroger. What's going on here? Oh, I, yeah, ridiculous. Okay, so moving on, right along here. Steelers, James, they are going to be tendering quarterback Dwayne Haskins. Sounds like at the same time they're making comments that they believe in Mason Rudolph. Um, but I've also heard they're planning on bringing another quarterback into the mix, to be determined. And to me, James, like I don't know how far we got to get into this, but Kevin Colbert, their GM, we know he is on his way out. He has
Mm-hmm.
said this is it, and he's been doing this 1 year thing for a number of years, but this is the final deal. It just seems strange to me that they're letting him call the shots all the way to the end. And maybe there's stuff going on in the background. Um, I know when what's his face in Baltimore was doing it, they were like, "Hey, you can do this last draft and all this stuff," because they totally trusted him. And I'm sure Colbert is consummate professional, but I don't know, man. Still, to me, I'd be hesitant to be putting that much power into the hands of a guy who doesn't really have any skin in the game now. And it just, if this offseason, if this run in free agency, if this draft, if they're not good, that could set back a legacy franchise, man. And it just seems dangerous to me.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Ozzie Newsome in
Yes, thank you.
Baltimore. And basically, with Ozzie Newsome, Newsome's protege was taking over the team. So the protege was already involved in the draft process, and so they were discussing it, and then Newsome, I guess, made the final decision from what I hear. For Colbert, like, I kind of understand allowing him to do the draft, and it's simply because if they go out and they hire somebody, he's not necessarily going to be up to speed on the players that Colbert's kind of been. He's been working on throughout the years and reading reports or whatever, or watching games, et cetera, et cetera. Going to the combine, they're not going to have their new GM at the combine. So it just makes sense to allow him to finish this draft because he's already put in a lot of the legwork for it.
All right, I hear you. I mean, it's not like new news that he's, resigning though. So it seems like they could have been filling that void. And hey, whatever. The Steelers, I have a hard time knocking them because they've been good for so long. It's just, as a manager, for me and how we do things, typically once you know that bond has been cut, you kind of got to start putting the power in somebody else's hands. You risk having some kind of issue, but
True.
every business is different, I guess. So, okay. Next story I saw, Micah Parsons, defensive rookie of the year. Looks like he played through a knee injury for like the bulk of the year. And it just makes it scary to think of how good he could be next season, James.
Yeah, I know. I wanted, like, I thought where were the lines? Number 6 pick, 5 pick, whatever last year. Based on what I was reading for possible character issues with him, I thought that high was a risk, but I kind of wanted to see the Lions trade back and draft him. I had a feeling about him, but I wanted like round 10 where he went with Dallas. I thought was about right for him, and I was psyched for Dallas about that pick because I thought it was a good pick, and I thought he would translate well to the NFL, which apparently he did. Hopefully, it's not a one-off season for him, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean they're bringing Dan Quinn back at defensive coordinator, so there's a lot to be excited about in Dallas. You're keeping some cohesiveness with that group, and at least on the defensive side of the ball, I think overall with McCarthy, I know you're not a big fan. I lost a lot of faith in him after watching him on Hard Knocks last year, but um, yeah, defensively, it's looking on the rise for Dallas, which is good because that was the missing piece. We all know what they can do offensively. So, all right, going back to Pittsburgh, I saw that they hired Brian Flores. Looks like he's going to be a senior defensive assistant slash linebackers coach. He's going to be continuing with his class action lawsuit nonetheless, which that's fine.
It's not a class action. It's just a lawsuit.
Oh, I thought it was a class action that he was bringing in all sorts of other coaches
Oh,
and
I hadn't heard that.
well, I guess allegedly, James, allegedly, I'll have to go check it. I don't want us getting sued over maybe me misspeaking. But either way, I'm glad that a team took a shot on him. It keeps him in the game, and he looked like he was like a rising star as a coach. And, things fell apart pretty fast in Miami. It sounds like there was some stuff going on in the background a long time with, just, I don't know, like chemistry issues with him and players and, executives and things like that. But, I like the Steelers took a shot on him because he seemed like he knew what he was doing. So,
Yeah, I thought the other news for Flores was more interesting than him being hired in Pittsburgh.
what's that?
Apparently, and I don't haven't been able to verify the amount of money associated with it, but when he was fired from Miami, he refused to sign what's the word?
Like a release or something?
What did they call it? Like exit employee waiver. Hold on, let me get a separation agreement. And
Well, that's because he's got an open claim against him.
well, no. This was before he filed the claim.
Oh, well, so he refused because he knew he was thinking or he was contemplating filing a claim, and so he didn't want to, give up his right to do that.
Yeah, and like I mean, it's pretty interesting because I mean I think it first of all it was interesting that he had claimed that there was a non-disclosure agreement that the Miami wanted him to sign, or he had said it, and Miami said that it was quote categorically false.
Okay.
And then his lawyer subsequently posted screenshots of the agreement on Twitter, like this is not false.
Yeah.
Here's the letter you sent my client. Here's the wording for the agreement you sent my client, where
Yeah, but
you can't.
separation agreements are pretty common, though.
Yeah, they're pretty common, but like the one article in it was basically like I agree with some of it, like business practices, but not saying anything negative or critical in nature about the Miami Dolphins organization.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
not
boilerplate, though. That's like, hey, we're paying you. Let's play nice. That's what it is.
and then not sue, not participate in any lawsuit, not give testimony in any court unless asked to by, and it's like all this stuff. And I understand it's boilerplate and it's kind of in there, but it's
Well,
like
that stuff about not suing though, that's like the whole purpose of a separation agreement is that it's like, hey man, you've seen the inside of this organization, you know that there's probably some skeletons in the closet, and we're going to pay you some money on your way out. We're, hey, things didn't work out, but we still love you, and we want to give you a little bone on your way out the door, and make sure that everybody goes their merry way and stays professional about this. And he thought, fuck you, because I was not treated right, and so I might come back and sue your ass. And it is a class action, by the way. I just took a peek at it, but no, I think that was a smart move on his part because I bet a lot of people, they just take the deal, whatever the money is, and they sign it and they move on. Some of it happens in the heat of the moment, and these separation agreements typically have a clause where you can like rescind it within a certain amount of days and things like that. But even then, it happens fast, and I don't like seeing like the lawsuits and the things like that. if there was legitimately something wrong, I hope it gets addressed. I just think it was smooth on his part to not sign it.
Oh, I agree, and it's just it kind of reading it and reading how Miami automatically said, "Oh, that's false. We never requested or whatever off
Yeah.
whatever they're saying." For them to say that it's false, kind of, in my opinion, gave more credibility to his claim about the payments for losing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Hey, you're gonna lie about this. What else you lying about? Yeah.
Exactly, and especially like you said, it's pretty much a boilerplate thing. So why would you lie about it?
Yeah. They shouldn't have to lie about that. I mean, that's like, you know, any business with any executive or senior level guy is probably doing separation agreements,
Yeah,
you know, and it's like, hey, things don't always work out. And sometimes you're here and you're witness to something that nobody wanted to have happen. But we did our best to mitigate it, and we just want to make sure everybody, keeps it under wraps because there's no reason, exposing flaws if we don't need to or whatever. And I don't know, it just, I get it. You can look at the shady side of it. You can look at, probably like a more proper side of it. But um, yeah, hey, it's just part of business. All right, so the last piece that I have, James, I saved the best for the last. Powerhouse, riveting stuff. Mitch Trubisky, James, he's feeling confident and he is wanting a starting job in the NFL. He's saying he's in a good place. He thinks he's ready to get back in the saddle and make it happen. I say good luck with that because that dude was highly erratic as a starter for the Bears. Um, my guess is that somebody's going to take a shot on him, but it's going to be in a competing role, like the Giants maybe with Daniel Jones, or Washington with whoever they want him to compete with, or a situation along those lines. I don't know that a team takes a shot on him purely to be a starter, and that's saying something with it being like the weakest quarterback class coming out in the draft in a long time. I don't know, man. We've seen enough of his tape to know that yeah, he's going to have some good games, but he's also going to have some just freaking horrific games. And teams don't like that because, it's like Washington. I guess I don't even know if I do Washington because they know that they're like an Alex Smith type quarterback away from being in the playoffs.
hmm
And Trubisky's too unpredictable. You need a guy that can manage the game, not turn the ball over, just play good, smart football. And he's not proven that he can do that. And he had a lot of time as a starter.
yeah, I agree. I have no faith in Trubisky. Like, I'll go back to draft night when he was picked number two overall, and I heard that pick and I said, "What the fuck? Like, seriously, what the fuck is Chicago doing?"
Yeah.
And you mentioned Washington, and this is to come in a future episode who exactly I think it is, but I think Washington's starting QB next year is going to be a guy they draft in the first round.
Okay. That could happen.
Now, when I delve more into it, I just looking at it, I see a lot of movement at the quarterback position,
Okay.
but I think Washington's first round pick is going to be the
That'll be
quarterback
their guy.
position.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about the quarterback stuff at the end of the show. And so I'm just teasing you with our question of the week. It's going to be quarterback related, James. So, but all right, why don't we move on? Unless there was some news that I missed that you want to talk about.
No, I think that was about it. Like I'm scanning and
Okay. Yeah, I mean, like I was saying, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel, but that's
like
all right.
like the only
Let's,
thing is apparently something happened at the Rams Super Bowl parade where some photographer fell off and Stafford didn't respond properly to it or some bullshit like that. I don't even know. Like, I looked at the story and I said, oh, what the fuck? But that's
Okay.
about it. But the whatchamacallit draft is this week. USFL draft, I believe, is
Oh,
this week.
all right. I was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I was reading is this week, which is because their season's starting pretty damn soon. And I think
Okay.
their season's starting in April. So it's just April 16th. Yeah. Apparently, all games are taking place in Birmingham, Alabama.
Hmm.
What?
Okay.
Which is weird, but that's the extent of it. I haven't read it. That was it. The other agreement the NFL signed with the XFL for like a farm system type thing.
Oh, like a developmental league? Like they're
Yeah,
making it sort of an official thing?
yeah. That was the other piece.
Okay.
That,
Yeah, I'll have to check that out because yeah, it'd be good if they got that locked in. It's they need something along those lines. I think is beneficial for the sport.
yeah, I'd seen it, but I hadn't. Uh, oh no, it's not developmental. The XFL will NFL XFL agreement to give NFL a petri dish to experiment with proposed rules.
Oh, all right.
Or, yeah, so there's a partnership, and part of it is that they're going to experiment with new rules in the XFL.
Gotcha. Okay. All right.
Anyways,
Good to move on.
yeah, good to move on.
Well, all right, we'll keep an eye on that. All right, so AFC Franchise Tag Candidates. Let's talk about it, James. I figured we could go through alphabetically, starting with the Ravens, and just talk about guys that could be in the mix, talk about where the team's at with cap space, talk about what the different positions are going to yield as a franchise tag this year, all that kind of fun stuff. And keeping in mind that it's pretty early. I guess not too early because the window opened yesterday for teams to start tagging guys. But
It
it's
opens. It doesn't open. It opens next week.
I got a note that it opened on the 21st and it closes on the 8th.
I read it. I thought it opened on the 28th and closed on the 8th.
Oh boy. Well, we'll get to the bottom of it. But so either way, it's still early in the off season, and so teams that look like they're tight on cap space, they've still got plenty of time to, do all the crazy manipulation that they do, cut guys, give guys more upfront money, whatever they could do to make room. And so some of these deals, they might sign a guy, franchise him, and then sign him to a long-term deal later, which makes his number even more palatable. And so, basically, we're just going to take a shot super early, looking at, hey, does this team have a guy that really is a feasible option? What are the odds? All that kind of crap. And then we'll see where it goes. And I was looking back at our spreadsheet from last year. I didn't have time to get the updated figure, but for 2020, there were 14 guys tagged, which is a lot, man. 14 out of 32. And I would bet most of them got a long-term deal before the deadline, which I think is what, like July? So like they tag him now, and they've got until July to sign him to a long-term deal. If they don't, he plays on the 1 years, and then they go back at it again, or they got to let him go. But um, you know, either way, fun stuff. Why don't we? Did you find the date or?
Yeah, your data's right. My data was wrong on the dates.
Okay. Well, before we go into the teams, let's just start by talking about the franchise tag values for this year. And I'll do offense and then defense and then special teams. I'm showing on offense, quarterbacks are going to be at 28.6 million, running backs 12.54 million, wide receivers 19.13 million, tight ends at 10.83 million, offensive line at 16.7 million. Flipping over to defense, I'm showing defensive tackles at 16.89 million, defensive ends at 20.19 million, linebackers at 17.42 million, cornerbacks at 17.3 million, safeties at 13.54 million, and then specialists, punters, kickers at 5.5 million. And so, it's good to point that out because it kind of shows you, where teams put the priority. Obviously, if a position yields a higher value, they believe it's a more valuable position, such as the quarterback spot. And then I believe, what is it? Defensive end is the second highest paid. And you kind of go from there. In running backs, they're the lowest other than the specialist, which, I think, or I mean, minus tight ends, which I think it goes to show you that position has lost value because their lifespan is shorter, and it just seems like teams can go out and get guys in the draft in the middle rounds a lot easier than they used to. And so it's, and then tight ends, I guess that's, it's rare that you get a Gronk or a Kittle or a Kelsey. And so a lot of those guys, it's, if they're good, they're good. But, how many of them are really great? Usually maybe 3 or 4 a year, right? So, but there's a tight end on my list for us to talk about tonight. So, yeah. And then kickers, with punter, kicker, 5.5 million. At first I kind of thought, man, that's a lot. But, with the way the cap's going up and everything, it's like, maybe it's really not that crazy for one of those positions anymore. Especially with like the kickers, if you got a guy that you like, you might as well pay him because we've seen so many teams, the kicker becomes the Achilles heel. And so it, in years past would seem laughable to pay somebody like that, but I don't know, man. A lot of games get won by the kicker now. So, but yeah, so those are the rates.
You and I have to go to the same source next year because I think this is the second year in a row where we did this and we had completely different values for every position.
All right, so I was looking at the finsider.com. It was just the first thing that came up when I Googled it.
Because I have quarterbacks at nearly 30 million.
Okay.
Wide receivers, call it 18.5 million. Then offensive linemen at 16.7 million.
Oh, we're right on that.
And tight ends at nearly 11 million.
Yeah, I'm at 10.8, so we're closer on most of them.
Running backs at 9.5.
Yeah, that one we're pretty far off on.
And then defensively, linebackers at 18.7, defensive ends at, call that 18, defensive tackles at 17, cornerbacks at 17.
Are you looking at Spotrac?
No.
Okay, because Spotrac's got running backs at 9.5 also. Yeah, probably should have went with Spotrac. So this article,
13.
thefinsider.com. So this article came out 7 hours ago, and they're saying that they got their figures from overthecap.com. And so, yeah, we're a little bit off, but that's okay. We don't need to focus so much on the levels.
So they're assuming the salary cap's probably going to be higher than what my article's assuming.
Yeah. And that's
because
okay.
my article's assuming it's going to be at 208 million.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just like the one that really threw me off and distracted me was like being like 3 million off for running backs.
Yeah, that's pretty significant for running backs. And to be honest, I think the 9.5 is more appropriate for today's game. But it's just rare that you're going to see anybody franchise tag a running back now. So yeah. All right, but so before we talk about the players and the teams, let's just kind of talk about some of the considerations that go into whether or not a guy gets franchise tagged. And so, when teams are going through this, they look at all sorts of factors. They look at, are they in a win now mode or are they rebuilding? If they're rebuilding, it might not be worth it to them to franchise tag a guy because they know that they're not likely to be competitive anyhow that next year. Um, does the player want to be on the team? Players now, you know, they get so bitchy sometimes about wanting out that they sort of force a trade. And so, unless you think you can sign a guy or, tag him and trade him, you just might pass on tagging him because he might sit out. Is injury a factor with the player? Is it a guy that maybe he plays great, but he gets hurt a lot? And so it's risky to tag him and spend all that money on him. And then I think teams look at, what are the alternatives? Is there somebody maybe already on the roster that's working their way up? Or is there somebody available in free agency, or a trade or the draft? You kind of got to look at your alternatives. And then, can you even afford it? I mean, obviously, they got to have the cap space or they got to have a path to manipulate the cap to get the space. And then, I think that, um, you typically want to see the guys highly rated. He's in the top tier for his position. But sometimes teams will tag a guy who's on the rise. And so, when you're looking at a PFF or a lineups grade or whatever, maybe he's not in the top tier yet, but they see that trajectory and they don't want to lose him. And then the last thing, I think some teams, like it or not, they do look at age for these players. Is he younger in his career or is he later in his career? And some of it could just be about respect. Hey, the guy's later in his career. I don't want to lock him up. But it's if they're younger, I think there's less known about that player. And so you're expecting that trajectory to keep going. And that's where you're willing to roll the dice and maybe tag him for a year, see if he's really got it, and then sign him to a long-term deal. And so those are just some of the factors that I thought of, James. I'm sure there's plenty more, but what do you think about that, man?
Yeah, I also kind of looked at where they were on the cap scale. Like, could they actually afford it? I didn't
Absolutely.
hear, I didn't hear you mention that, but
Yeah, you definitely you got to be able to afford it, especially if it's like a quarterback and it's coming in close to 30 million, that can you might be saying, hey, I mean, quarterback is maybe not the best example, but you could be looking at it saying, are we better off maybe splitting that out across a handful of like high-end free agents and maybe building a more balanced roster? And so there's definitely some strategy that you got to look at the full picture for sure. All right, so what do you think, man? You want to talk about the Ravens?
yeah, I'm good to talk about the Ravens.
All right, so for the cap space, I did go and look at Spotrac for their 2022 estimate, and so I had them with the Ravens at 9.79 million available. You're close, right? But you're using something different or what? Oh, you still there?
Yeah, you got me?
Oh, I froze up for a minute there, but yeah, we're back.
All right. Yeah, I mean we're a million off on it, so it's fine. That's what that look was like.
Okay,
It's close enough.
close enough. All right, so James, I went through. Skimmed some articles, skimmed their free agents, looked at lineups, looked at PFF, did all this stuff. I'm coming up with a couple of options. I really only see one that's feasible, in my opinion. And to be honest, because of their cap situation, and the thing that we got to keep in mind is that aren't they talking about extending Lamar Jackson this offseason?
Hmm.
I mean, that's going to make it real hard for them to tag a guy. Um, but let's just say hypothetically, maybe they can make it all work. I'm looking at center Bradley Bozeman is their top option. He fits that mold, young up and comer. It's a run first team. They want to keep that line solidified. They want to protect Lamar. They want to be able to open those running lanes. The PFF not as high as I'd like to see, 73.3.
Something's going weird with our connection today.
Yeah, we're having some internet stuff, so apologize to technical difficulties. But Bozeman, he's on the rise. I think he could fit the bill. Is he worth, as an offensive lineman, 16.7 million? I think if they did it, they're doing it with the intention of turning it into a long-term deal. Um, I saw Calais Campbell, Justin Houston, and Jimmy Smith as other possibilities. Given just where they're at in their careers and where they're at with their ratings, I'm not sure that they're really tag material, to be honest. My opinion.
I agree with you on Jimmy Smith and Campbell and them not being really taggable per se. So everything when I did my research, and I didn't do as extensive research as you did, but everything I was seeing is Boseman's market value is around 10 million.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it's necessarily a smart tag person or a person to tag.
I think with a guy like him, so what you do there is you tag him and you sign him to like a 3-year deal with 2 years guaranteed. And so it's like, look, man, you're going to get more than this over time, but it's going to come at a lower amount per year. And for him, on his way up, he might say, yeah, that's good. And then he gets another bite at the apple in a couple of years if he wants to bet on himself. Um, but yeah, no, I hear you. If it was just purely for a 1-year wonder, if that was the case, I would probably look at a guy like Calais Campbell because it's like, hey, he's at the end of his career. You just want to make sure he doesn't go somewhere else because you think you got one more run and you could use the guy. I typically look at the tag for, hey, you want to lock a guy down and you want to try and get him long term if you can. But if not, at least you got him. You're just paying a premium for him.
Yeah. So when I looked at it, and this I mean, well, shit, everybody for the Ravens was hurt last year. So
Yeah.
the one player that I saw as a possibility, that was hurt last year. He only played in 6 games. Was Deshaun Elliott.
Okay.
I look at him. I look statistically. 2020, he played the full year. I mean, he had 2 forced fumbles at safety. He had number of tackles, but I think he's an up and comer that would fit that category where he might be on the verge. The what is it, 9 million, 10 million for whatever the amount is. I think it's, let me see, safety. 12 million might be a little bit high for him for a 1-year deal, but I just kind of see him on the rise. When he played in 2020, the full season, he allowed a 58% completion percentage on passes thrown his way. When he was the primary defender, he had 2.5 sacks, four passes defended, and he had a quarterbacks had a 73.7 rating against him.
Okay.
It might, but I, ultimately, I just don't see. I see him as a possibility. I can see Boseman as a possibility, but I'm not certain that with having to re-sign or the desire to re-sign or extend this, Lamar Jackson, I don't see them as really having the room to fit a guaranteed contract on when they're 9 million only under the cap.
Yeah, I think it's risky. If I'm them, and that's, I mean, you got 9 million in space, and I'm sure you want to bring guys like Campbell and Houston and some of these guys back. And so, not only do you got to find a way to extend Lamar, you got to find a way to sign some of these other guys. You tag somebody, I just think it'd be tough. So I think Bozeman's feasible, but realistically, I don't know that any of them are going to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so let's move it on then. Let's talk about the Buffalo Bills. And so, James, my source here shows them being 1.33 million above the cap, and so they've got some work to do just to get within the cap. Which obviously, we were just talking about the space with the Ravens. If you're over, it's even more difficult to find a way to make it happen. Um, and I don't know, where are they at with Josh Allen, man? Are they talking to doing his deal this year?
No, they already did it.
Oh, duh. Yeah, we talked about that a little while back. We were comparing him to Mahomes, and yeah,
Yeah,
different. Thank you. And so, all right, so that helps. They're over, but they've already got their big one done. Um, but still a number of free agents, and so it's what are you going to do? You're going to get creative and manipulate and maybe sort of like artificially give yourself a couple of years here, or do you maybe play it safer and think your team is strong enough as it is? Everything I did, the only guy I could come up with is Harrison Phillips, defensive lineman. He was their highest PFF rated free agent on the team. They had a number of other guys that were, like in that kind of like that 70-ish range. I just didn't see them exciting enough or top tier enough to make the cut. And even then, with their cap situation, I don't see them using it, man, to be honest.
so I don't think any other free agents are worthwhile bringing back at the cap number. I went through the list. I don't see a single one of their free agents that the cap number gives them any value for that player. So I'm not even going to speculate who their cap. They're not going to tag anyone.
All right, easy enough. All right, well, let's move on. We got the Cincinnati Bengals. This one is a little bit exciting. I've got them just shy of 50 million in cap space. They have a freaking ton of free agents, which is tough for them just coming off their Super Bowl run. It's one of these things. They're going to be a team that lost the Super Bowl and still probably has like some mass exodus of players, but at least they're in a good cap situation where they can go out and free agency wise, kind of pick and choose who they want. Coming off of a Super Bowl run, players are actually going to want to go to Cincinnati for probably the first time in a couple decades.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, the top dog on the list was free safety Jesse Bates. I just saw him on NFL Network a couple days ago. They were talking about something like he had 6 passes defensed in the playoffs, which was the most this year. And obviously they played a bunch of playoff games, but that's still good. They were kind of knocking him. He had like a missed tackle in the Super Bowl, but nobody's perfect. I think he is definitely feasible, especially with that kind of space. And I think their goal for him is to lock him down long term. If they were looking elsewhere, or maybe let's just say they signed him long term and they had an opportunity to use the tag on somebody else. It's tough, man. I saw somebody was throwing Riley Reif's name out there, and that I think that's more of a positional value where you need your offensive lineman. But I think Reif is kind of like past the point in his career where he's typically deemed as a taggable option. And so I think it's Bates or bust on the Bengals, in my opinion.
So I don't see Riley Reif. Like, the offensive line, they need to do they need a lot of work at offensive line. I agree with you on Bates. Based on everything I saw, his projected market value is somewhere around 15 million a season. Another possible candidate. Now you're a little bit over his projected value, but I think that CJ Uzoma is a possible candidate there. I think those were the two candidates I saw for them, but I wound up agreeing with you on Bates.
Yeah, you know what? I had a note about Uzoma, and I guess I was just wondering, do you think he did enough? I liked I liked his play before he got hurt. I think he has the chemistry with Burrow. I guess my one hesitation was Gronk making his comments about wanting to play with Burrow. You know, I got to believe that hinders some of Uzama's, I think, negotiating ability.
So true, but I don't know where it cut off. And
Okay. You heard me talk about
uh,
Gronk, though?
Gronk wanting to play with Burrow, and I think you're right with that. But I was saying he was a candidate. I wasn't saying that they were going to use the tag on him.
Yeah. No, no, that's what this is all about. We're just kind of talking, could they, will they, won't they, why? So yeah, he's on the list. I like that. That's cool. All right. Want to move on to the Browns?
I'm good to move on to the Browns.
All right. So I got Cleveland at just shy of 25 million in space. And I came across one article which kind of blew my freaking mind. They were thinking tight end David Njoku is their most likely franchise tag candidate. I don't know. I mean, they just spent a bunch of money on what's his face from Atlanta at tight end a couple years ago, and he's not been the greatest for him. I know Njoku's kind of like been coming back around as of late, but he's not like a game changer at tight end. Uh, I wouldn't do it. I don't see the value being there. I think you could probably sign him to a deal, just make him the right offer, or let him walk and find another tight end. I mean, they had, who was the other guy? Their third string tight end was playing great last year too. So I don't know.
Carlson? No.
I'm thinking Harrison Bryant, I want to say.
Yeah, that's it.
I think they got options. I wouldn't waste the tag on Njoku.
No, I wouldn't waste the tag on Njoku. Like, yeah, you could get Njoku for a lot cheaper than what the tag value would be, or what the tag price would be.
Yeah, and so then looking at their free agents, the next couple guys I saw that had pretty good PFF grades were safety MJ Stewart and linebacker Anthony Walker.
The next is where you cut off.
Yeah, we're getting some tech issues. Safety MJ Stewart and linebacker Anthony Walker had the highest PFF grades of their free agents. I'll be honest, James, I don't really know a ton about either of those guys. I mean, I know them by name. I can't say that they're like burning to be franchise tagged based off of my limited knowledge on them.
Yeah, I know the names. I couldn't really tell you anything about them. I mean, I think, in my opinion, the Browns kind of need to blow it up.
Really?
Yeah, they just need to blow it up and rebuild.
Man.
And I it's not worth using a franchise tag on anybody on that team.
Okay. See, you're just blowing my mind here is what you're doing. I think, you get him a receiver, you figure out the quarterback thing, and you focus on the defense because the running game, the offensive line, all that's there. It's just you just gotta get over the hump. And for them, it's like just get over the hump, get into the playoffs, win a game, and then hopefully next year you can be free of Mayfield and you can go after a quarterback that you really want. I guess I'd be nervous of blowing it up and then maybe you don't get to that next step, because now you're so far behind.
Yeah, no, I'm not blowing it up. Probably is not the right term for me to use in that. I basically what I'm saying is these players that are free agents, let them go or try to sign them for less. Like for instance, Jadeveon Clowney, if they tagged him, it'd be like 18 million a year. You could get him for like
Yeah,
10.
it's a waste. Yeah, and he's
Or
never
or
he's never lived up to it, man.
yeah, Njoku, you could get him for like 5-6 million a year. I mean, if you re-sign him for at the free agent contract value. Don't use a franchise tag on these players.
Yeah, don't be
Okay?
desperate.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't be. They're a good team. Okay. I'm with you on that. Ready for the Denver Broncos?
Yes.
All right, I got the Broncos at just shy of 40 million in cap space. That's pretty solid. From what I'm reading, linebacker Kenny Young is the top candidate to get the tag, which, he's had a lot of hype with how well he played last year. I was reading, and this is where it gets confusing. Sometimes you look at PFF, you compare them to lineups, whatever else. PFF actually has Josie Jewell as their highest rated linebacker. And I know he's like a blue collar overperformer out of Iowa, just has always been better than what you would think his physical ability could have him be. But Kenny Young, I believe, they look at him, they think he's got the highest ceiling and all that kind of stuff. I get that. Um, one that I saw, which, it just talks about the running back position, is that, Melvin Gordon is their highest rated offensive player, but there's no way you could tag him, especially with Javonte Williams on the roster. And so, if they don't come to agreement with him, I'm sure they let him walk, no problem.
So for the Broncos, while I don't see them tagging anyone, I see them using that 40 million to get Rodgers. The Kareem Jackson was another candidate
Okay.
that I saw, but it's still such a high price tag for the Broncos to pay a safety, and I struggled with that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's where
It'd be stupid to tag Gordon because you have Javonte Williams, who's clearly the number one. So you're going to pay $10 million, almost $10 million, or $12 million in your case, whichever one's right, when he's like his cap hit for this past season was less than 9.
yeah, yeah, and he's yeah, I mean Javonte Williams is the guy now. Let him walk, go draft a guy to be Williams's complement, and spend that money elsewhere. I do like the idea of them tagging Kenny Young, but it has to be with the intention of locking him down long term because I think that guy's got some potential. And it's good to have that on the defense. They've had a good defense. I would just hate to lose a guy like that that's up and coming. All right, let's talk about the Texans. So James, the Texans are sitting at just shy of 20 million in space. Man, you would think with how shitty they are, they would have a lot more space than that, but you know, 20 million's not horrible when you consider a number of teams are in the negative, but um, this one's tough. I saw a number of people were saying possibly defensive end Jake Martin. He had a pretty strong season. Um, I know just historically they've liked safety Justin Reed. He's kind of getting up there in age now, and they've had a rotation in their management ranks. Desmond King at cornerback. He had an 81 rating on lineups. I didn't pull his PFF. And so maybe I could see him being an option potentially. I think for them, their priority is obviously figuring out what they're going to do with Deshaun Watson. Um, Martin, I think has appeal because defensive ends typically are a premium position. And so if they think he's truly that up and comer, he might be a guy that you tag and ride him out for a year.
With the Texans, I only saw one player that might be worthwhile for tagging. I don't think they should tag anyone. They have to figure out Deshaun Watson first and what they're doing with Deshaun Watson, how he fits into the picture. Because if I remember correctly, they're 20 million under the cap. I'm gonna look it up really quick, but I think his cap hit is it's something like it's $40 million.
Oh, that
So
drastically changes things for them. Yeah.
and but the problem is if they trade him, his dead cap hit's going to be $51 million.
Oh, that's right. You were telling me about that. That's such a mess of a deal.
So
Oh,
so I mean, without trading him, just having him sit on the sidelines. Let me see. Let me go to this let me see if I can get the 2021 number, because I think just having Watson on the sidelines for 2021 ate up. It was only 15 million this past year, but it was a 67 million dollar dead cap hit because basically his entire contract's guaranteed. They're the Texans can't tag anyone because they don't have the cap space to tag anyone.
That's a
They're
good
they're
assessment.
they're gonna move on from Deshaun Watson in this offseason. They have to move on from him this offseason. So if you had him, what was the number you had him at under the cap?
Just about 20. So you're
Just about
saying that the
20. So
difference,
you're looking at like 12 million of that 20 is going to be taken up by the additional dead cap hit
yeah,
for Watson. So
yeah.
you're looking at 8 million. You could tag a punter.
And even then, you can't sign anybody else. So you probably
Yeah.
just shouldn't tag anybody. I got you. No, that's man, I'm glad you caught that. All right, so let's say they're out. Let's move at the Indianapolis Colts. I've got them at 36.99 million, and I am hearing that offensive lineman Mike Glowinski is a feasible candidate. I agree with that. They're definitely a team that likes keeping that offensive line strong. Um, you know, this is a no. In my opinion, it's a no way. But T.Y. Hilton was actually their highest rated free agent on lineups with an 80 rating. But he's not he's not taggable. He's one of those guys we talked about. You got injury issues, whatever else. You can't. It's not feasible for the tag, in my opinion. And then this is one that I don't see them doing. I'd love it, Central Michigan all the way, but Eric Fisher is a free agent, and I think they did like him, but they would prioritize Glowinski over him.
Yeah, I don't know if Eric Fisher's worth nearly $17 million. T.Y. Hilton's definitely not worth it. I actually, and we'll get into this a little bit later. I actually have recalculated their the amount they're under the cap hit based on what I project happening with certain players, and I have them at almost $55 million under the cap going into the season so
Okay.
far. And I think it's better spent in free agency because there's some key pieces that they're going to need in free agency to spend that money on.
Okay. Are you saving that for the end of the show, or you want to go on to it now?
I'm going to save that for the end of the show because it has to do with certain things that have been mentioned. So
It'll tie into some quarterback stuff. Okay.
it will definitely tie into some quarterback stuff.
Well, I'm excited now. I like that when you get the juices flowing. All right, well, let's talk about the Jaguars then. I'm showing. Freaking, we're having a bad Wi-Fi connection. I'm showing the Jags at 56.1 million, and the likely candidate, if there is one, would be offensive tackle Cam Robinson. He's got a lineups grade of 74, which is really not very strong for a tag candidate, but I get it. They want to have a bookend, young up and coming guy, lock him in. It could happen. I know that they got offensive guard Andrew Norwell a little bit longer in the tooth, but also much stronger rated, 83 in lineups. And, I don't know. I understand why they would do Robinson. I would have liked his rating to be higher, to be honest.
I agree with you. I would like his rating to be higher. I called this all day, all off season last year, leading up to the franchise tag deadline, that they were going to tag Robinson. Left tackle is the hardest position to find somebody that's decent in the NFL. And as the left tackle goes, your entire offensive line goes. Having that bookend at the left tackle to take care of the blind side is vital for every organization. And the only way that Trevor Lawrence is going to grow is to have that consistency and have that expected performance at left tackle. So therefore, the only player of this team that the Jaguars could tag and the only player the Jaguars should consider tagging is Cam Robinson.
Okay, I like that. I do see a lot of people mocking them taking a tackle at 1 overall now, but even then, I think maybe you still do it, and then you just put one of them at right tackle. You better to
Mhm.
have more than not enough, and just shuffle your guys around. Trevor Lawrence is the future. Protect him. Give him a chance. All right, so moving on here, we got the Chiefs. I got them at 3.76 million in space. Not a whole lot, my friend. And I got, in my opinion, two guys that they should be looking at. I think one of them is a no-brainer. Is Orlando Brown Jr., the offensive tackle they traded for just last year, and so they're going to have to find a way to get some cap space for him, which it gets dicey then because I think strong safety Tyrann Mathieu is another candidate that they'd like to keep, but if it's between the two, I gotta believe they're hanging on to Orlando Brown Jr.
So I have to go back and see what they gave up for him. Real quick because I don't think it was that much.
I mean, he's their left tackle, man.
So he he was traded with a second and a sixth round pick in 2021, 2022 respectively for a first round pick in 2021 and a third and fourth round pick in 2021 and a fifth round selection. I think that based on looking at the trade, I think they have to tag Orlando Brown. I think I think they really have to. I think it kind of sucks for them because giving up what that Matthew gives on defense is is a lot to give up. So I think they try to sign Matthew and tag Brown.
Yeah, and they're going to have to get creative to find some cap space. But
Yeah.
if they could, they'd keep them both. And they also have defensive tackle Jerron Reed is a free agent. He was pretty good this past year for them. And so it's tough. They got work to do. I think Mahomes.
Actually, I'm going to switch it.
Okay.
They tag Matthew and sign Brown. And the reason I say that is because last year Tyrann Matthew's cap hit was nearly. Did you hear a word I just said, or did it just freeze?
I heard Tyrann Matthews' cap hit was.
Okay, it was 20 million, nearly 20 million last year.
Okay.
So tagging Matthew this year would actually get him back at a discount.
Yeah, but can you fit all that into the cap, all those deals?
I know. I agree with you. They got to do something creative there, but
Yeah.
I think that's the route to go.
Okay. All right, let's keep it moving on here. We got the Raiders next at just shy of 20 million in space. I saw the likely candidate was defensive tackle Jonathan Hankins. I I don't know, man. I mean, my opinion is that the Raiders, you got a whole new regime coming in here. I'm not seeing a guy that thrills me enough to tag, to be honest. I know Richie Incognito, freaking old man Richie. He's a freaking 92 on lineups. He's their highest rated free agent by far. You don't tag him because he's at the end of his rope. Cornerback Desmond Trufant had an 81 on lineups. But he's dicey, dude. He's he's a liability in coverage, man. You look at what the Lions did with that guy a few years ago. It's risky. I don't see anybody jumping off the page to me saying they're worth it. And I get it. Somebody took a stab at Hankins, but I just don't see a guy.
So when I went through the Raiders, I came up with their best free agent this year is Casey Hayward.
Okay.
And last season they paid him $4 million. There's no way they're going to pay him $18 million or $17 million this season.
Not capable,
Especially
or not taggable. No.
not taggable at all. So because of that, there's nobody they should tag.
Yeah, take that money, spread it around, get some guys, and see what you can do. Okay, next up we got the Chargers. This one, man, this is like a great spot to be in. They're at 57.53 million in space. And this was a funny one. It was from sportsnaut.com. They said they should tag kicker Dustin Hopkins. And so we were talking about tagging kickers earlier. I don't think they'll do it because I think Mike Williams is a much higher priority if it comes down to it. Williams and Herbert, they've got chemistry there. You want to keep a good thing going. And then honestly, if you had to go even a step beyond that, I'd look at a guy like Chris Harris Jr. I know he's not coming off his greatest campaign, but still 85 rating on lineups, still young enough in his career that, he could go for another contract if you play it right. And so I don't know. I just, get the kicker because you don't want to lose games over the kicker, but just freaking pay the guy. And if you got to tag a guy, tag Mike Williams, man.
Yeah, Mike Williams had clearly head and shoulder above the rest, one of Herbert's favorite targets. 76 receptions for 1,200 yards from Herbert. With the 56 million, you tag Williams, pay him the 18 million, work out a long-term deal with him, and make your quarterback happy.
Yeah, and there's still plenty of space to sign the kicker and whoever the heck else you want to sign.
Exactly.
And if I'm them, honestly, if I'm them, I spend that money this year because they were right on the fringe of the playoffs, man. Okay, next up we got the Dolphins, and I've got them at 62.06 million with Mike Gesicki as the likely tag candidate. My research, I was looking more as defensive end Emmanuel Ogbah, but I could see them going either way, to be honest. I think both these guys are in that sort of, tier where they're valuable to the team. The price is right for what that value is for the team, and they've got a ton of space. They might as well use it. I can see them going either way, man. I think Ogbah's probably, because of defensive end, a little bit more desirable if I had to pick between the two.
I agree with you, but I think Tua needs all the pass catching he can get. Gesicki, from my research, had the 5th most receiving yards over the last 5 seasons. Oh, I'm sorry, over the last 3 seasons, and he's 26, so he's just going to go up from there. I think that they'd be wise to tag Gesicki over anybody else.
Sure, keep it on the offensive side of the ball. I got you. And honestly, they should be well within their means to bring back both guys. They've got a lot of space. Okay, so next up we got the Patriots at 7.33 million. To me, James, the no-brainer is that they got to bring back cornerback J.C. Jackson. Mm-hmm. He is their man in the secondary now, and Bill Belichick loves his secondary. I think it's just a matter of, can they get creative enough with the cap to do it and still fill the roster with quality depth. It looks like Trent Brown, free agent. Belichick likes him. I know his run in Oakland didn't work out well, but also center Ted Karras is a free agent. Belichick's likes his guy at pivot. That's one that he might look at. But I think it's got to be J.C. Jackson if they use it.
Okay, so J.C. Jackson is hands down the only choice for a player to tag, hands down. The sets I came up with on him when I was doing a little bit of research into it is over his first 4 seasons he's had 25 interceptions. tied for the second most in the Super Bowl era. He in 2021 he had 8 interceptions and 23 passes defended. Last year, and also quarterbacks had a 32.6 rating when he was the primary defender on targets. He's like one of the best, if not the best, cover corners in the league right now, and you can't let him go. You tag him.
Yeah, there's going to be a long-term deal, but if you have to, you tag him and you find a way to fit it in. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so next up we got the Jets, Jets, and they're sitting at 44.73 million in projected space. This one's weird, man, because it seems like free safety Marcus May would be the guy, but then you hear or you recall that there's some strife with him and the team. And so I don't know, maybe he's not the guy. The next man up that I saw, which I don't necessarily agree with, is wide receiver Jamison Crowder. He's got a lineups rating 81. He's good. I like him, but he's not great. And, at this stage of his career, you got to be great to get tagged. And I don't know. And so if it's not Marcus May, I don't see them tagging anybody in New York.
So give me a minute. I wanted to look this up before, and I didn't. So So according to Spotrac, his projected average annual salary market value is $7.4 million for Marcus May.
Wow, that seems so low. I thought he was like a premier safety.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they computed this, but
yeah, I mean, hey, they got some science behind it. And so unless you tagged him and signed him to a long-term deal, the value's way off.
And looking at Jamison Crowder, they calculated his market value at $12.3 million.
Yeah.
I don't think that just tag anyone. I just they'd be way overpaying, and you're right. There was that strife with Marcus May that I completely forgot about before you mentioned it.
Yeah, and I mean they're a team that has to overpay. When you suck, you have to overpay. But it's probably not worth it. All right, next up we got the Steelers at 29.6 million. I think Big Ben's retirement has opened some things up for them with the cap, which is nice. In this one, I read an article. I don't agree with it. They're saying wide receiver Juju. Whoop, you there?
Yeah. Big Ben's retirement opened some stuff up for him with the cap and.
Yeah, so the article I caught had him going after Juju Smith-Schuster. I don't see it, but I don't know who else they would use. Maybe offensive guard Trey Turner. I still don't think that's good value there. I'm not seeing a guy that makes sense for Pittsburgh this year, which is kind of rare because typically they're so deep that they're losing guys every season. I didn't see that extensive of a list this year.
Yeah, so all right, you say Ben Roethlisberger's retirement freed up space for him. They still have a cap hit of $10 million for Roethlisberger this year.
Well, yeah, but wasn't it like 40 last year? Or they restructured it? It was 40 and then they got it down?
Yeah, I think they restructured it. Let me take a look at that. Because I think I want to say his cap hit was not that much last year either.
Okay. It was, I remember it was going to be a monster number. And they must have reworked it to make it more palatable. But I get what you're saying in principle, that it's never good to be paying a guy that's no longer on the team.
Yeah, exactly. That was my point. Last year it was about $26 million was his cap hit.
All right. And so, yeah, maybe that 10 plus or whatever
Yeah, it's
it got pushed to
they're
the future.
this year, this coming season, it's 10 million. The following season, it's
Oh man,
uh,
it's going out 2 years.
I think so. Let me double
Yeah,
check that
that's
because
not good.
I mean it's only 4 million, I think, but
Still, that's 4 million for a guy that's been long gone at that point.
I guess not. I guess not. I'm wrong.
Okay.
There's no dead cap hit for this the following season.
All right. So,
But there's no chance in hell that they tag anyone. They need a lot. They need to do a lot of work on the offensive line specifically, and to be able to do that, they're going to need to use all their open cap space.
yeah, and I like what you're saying, actually. I think that that's the best place for them to focus. You know that they're going to have a new quarterback, whether it's Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, a guy that's,
Carson Wentz. Um,
I'm, I'm just saying, a guy that's going to be new as a starter for their team. So you want to protect them, whoever it is. But then also, you're probably shifting the focus to the running game until whoever that guy is gets it done anyhow. And they just drafted what's his
Jimmy
face,
Garoppolo,
Jimmy Garoppolo. They just drafted what's his face real high last year at running back. So why not
Najee Harris.
why not give Najee Harris a chance to have some lanes and be the workhorse while you figure out what's going on at quarterback? And you think it's gonna be Jimmy G, man? You want to save that for later, or you want to tell me about that now?
No, no, we'll save it for later.
Okay.
I'm just throwing some names out there.
All right. Well, we're getting close. All right. And so we got next up, we got the Tennessee Titans. These guys, it's a bit of a mess. They're at 6.65 million over the cap. They've got some work to do. I'm reading that they would really like to hang on to linebacker Harold Landry. I don't blame them. I just also see them wanting to hang on to guys like center Ben Jones, linebacker Jayon Brown, and even probably linebacker Rashaan Evans. And so, and on top of that, this is, I think, the year they're going to be trying to extend AJ Brown. And so I think they got some work to do, man. And if they're going to use the tag, they're going to have to work a miracle at that cap spot.
So I think the if if they're going to use the tag, let me double check this. Yeah. So you're looking at value, a little bit of value, but value based on Spotrak's calculation for his market value for Landry, because it's about 17.1 million. So you're looking at like a million or so in value for him this coming season if you tag him.
And you can't
Outside
get a
of
long-term deal.
yeah, outside of that, I don't. They have a lot of work to do to get under the cap.
Yeah.
So I don't think I think Landry would be the only option, but I don't think he's gonna be tagged.
I'm with you, man, and I'm hoping they hang on to him. I'm hoping that they do enough to keep it rolling. You know, I like Vrabel. I like that team. I was hoping they would have done more this year, and it just kind of blew up in their faces in the playoffs. But it's all good, man. So that's the AFC franchise tag candidates. Any closing thoughts on that before we move on, James?
I don't think so.
Okay, so then let's kick it on to question of the week. And I guess I'll give you my question of the week. You got a whole bunch of stuff you want to talk about, and so maybe you can parlay it into that, or we'll just change the question of the week to be whatever that is. But when I was looking back at our notes for last year, when we did this segment, we were talking about the possibility of Dak Prescott and Big Ben both ending up on different teams in 2021, and neither happened. And so I guess, wanted to ask, do you envision a big name quarterback other than possibly Deshaun Watson that will be on the move this offseason? And I know we've talked about Aaron Rodgers. I didn't think he was going to get traded, but of course now he's doing his thing on Instagram. And it just seems like in general there's hype every year about a big quarterback move and it never really materializes. And so, I'm going to say no because I guess I'm just not going to buy into the hype. But um, I'm secretly wanting it because obviously it's super exciting if it happens. But what do you think, man? Is this going to like lead into your whole thing, or did I hit the spot or what?
Other than Deshaun Watson, I see 4 other quarterbacks being on different teams
Okay.
this year. And I will even tell you the teams where they will be. Russell Wilson, Tampa Bay.
That'd be sweet.
Deshaun Watson, Seattle.
Okay.
Aaron Rodgers, Denver. Carson Wentz. I haven't decided where Carson Wentz is going to be.
Washington.
I'm leaning towards the Giants.
I think the Giants, we'll talk about them next week, but I think the Giants are in salary cap hell, man.
And the final one is Jimmy Garoppolo at Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so I guess Garoppolo, I could have put him in with the Deshaun Watson thing because we know he's out in the move.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, man, I just worry about him going to Pittsburgh because I like the Steelers as an organization, and Garoppolo, he's a good regular season quarterback. He's not a good playoff quarterback.
Right. And I agree with you. And now, ultimately, I see him as a bridge quarterback because I see Pittsburgh drafting their quarterback of the future this coming draft. And I'll even tell you who they're going to draft. I can't remember the guy's name, but he's a quarterback from Nevada. He's a little statuesque in the pocket, but handing the ball off, and he has, from what I'm reading, he has one of the best arms and accuracy in the projected quarterback for the projected quarterbacks. He's from Nevada. I just completely drew a blank on his name.
Okay, I'll let you look for him because you've piqued my interest.
Yeah, I have to look for his name.
Take your time. Take your time.
Carson Strong is his
Okay.
name. So I just see. Let me get a page that's working properly and go to the draft analysis of him. Pittsburgh's going over, especially with Najee Harris. They're going to be handing the ball off a lot. Pittsburgh's notorious for having the running game. He's a little bit statuesque, a little bit of a Tom Brady type. Not comparing him to Tom Brady,
Yeah.
but in mobility, which isn't necessarily the best.
But they're used to it in Pittsburgh.
They're used to it in Pittsburgh. Ben Roethlisberger. I want to see where look at his rating, but I just something as I'm starting to dive into the draft a little bit. I like I said, Washington. I see them drafting Desmond Ritter.
Okay.
I'm not finding his quick look. I'm not finding his draft profile, but I just see him. I see him. I see a bunch of fucking quarterbacks going. I unfortunately see the Lions drafting a quarterback in the fucking first round, but at least it's not going to be the number 2 pick. It's going to be the number 32 pick, which is fine. It's the guy from West Virginia, Willis. So what the fuck is it? Okay. I'm drawing blanks on names right now.
That's fine. You're way ahead of me on the draft stuff. Like I'm still a little ways away from starting to go crazy on the the ESPN rankings and my boy Walter Football. I like watching his stuff. And so that time will be coming for me.
It's not West Virginia. It must be Virginia. That's coming out in the draft.
All right, while you're looking, I'll just wrap that part up. So for anybody who's still watching, just like Name That Stadium, hit us up in the comments section, answer our question of the week. Do you think there's going to be a big name quarterback other than Deshaun Watson and Jimmy G that will be on the move this offseason? If you do, we want to hear it. Lay it out there in the comments, man. So what'd you think, James? You find it?
It's and this is why I was thrown for a loop on it. It's Malik Willis
Is that the guy at a Liberty?
yeah, that's the guy from Liberty.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
here's the strength for strong that the guy I was talking about. I found it. He's they say this is from CBS. Loads of in the bucket throws down the field on film. Aggressive about tight window throws and hit many of them in college. Will give his receivers a chance to make a play on the football. His presence is advanced. Started 31 games over 3 seasons in Nevada. Weakness: immobile. Has massive struggles even moving inside the pocket and will not be able to create outside of the structure in the NFL. Accuracy is good, but not a clear-cut strength. Wasn't ultra efficient on long throws. Just attempted an insane amount of them.
Oh, okay.
Stylistic NFL comparison: Jared Goff.
All right. So yeah, give him a great offensive line.
So, but this Malik Willis guy, the whole gist of it, stylistic NFL comparison, he's a smaller Josh Allen.
Oh man, I like that.
So
And you get him at 32, which gives you a fifth year option.
exactly.
That's a good move. I'd be okay with them trying that. I just gotta read up on some of these guys and watch some tape before I start getting hyped up on them because I just to this point I've not heard anything good about the quarterback class.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've not heard anything good about the quarterback class, but it's going to pick up, and you're going to see four. I'm going to call it 4 first round picks.
Yeah, it always happens, and
You're
a
gonna
lot of
you're
times
gonna
they go
have
flying
Pickett,
up the board. Yeah.
maybe even 5. Because you're gonna have Pickett, you're gonna have probably Willis, probably Ritter, probably Strong, and probably the other guy, Coral.
Okay.
And so I mean, they're going to go up the board, but that's a whole nother discussion to come in the future.
Yeah, we're gonna get there. We're gonna do a mock draft and all that kind of fun stuff. I'm excited for it. All right. So for tonight, James, any closing thoughts?
No, I don't think so. I got a little bit off topic, but it was on topic because of the QB carousel
Yeah, no,
concept.
and it tied into the question of the week, and so it was all good. No, I love it. That's why we're doing this. We get to come up with these crazy ideas, and so yeah, next week we'll be doing franchise tag candidates for the NFC for anybody who's still watching. We hope you liked the show. If you did, hit us up with the thumbs up or the like, whatever platform you're on, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It helps us out here. James, like always, man, it was cool. I will catch you later, man.
All right, sounds good. Have a good one.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.